Welcome to our lovely, beautiful listeners. My name is AVENTINA MABUNDA. I'm not alone. I'm with my co-host, Dr. Shamala NGWENYA. So you are at the right place. This is actually our second episode of our beautiful show, African Experience. Let Africa embrace herself. So, as you have joined us and you have taken this bold move to embrace Africa for yourself, the million-dollar question to start with is, how well do you know your continent? How well can you tell your own African story?
Oh, yeah, Aventina, that is $1 million question indeed. You know, as we travel the world, we go outside Africa. Sometimes, people think that Africa is one big country. You know, when you are traveling and people are asking you, I mean, sometimes you'll get somebody who's asking you about somebody from Africa, and you ask, where about are they coming from? And they will tell you, oh, I know he's from Ghana. And you tell them, no, Africa is not actually one big country. Africa is a continent. And today, with our listeners, we want to see how well do we know our continent. And, some of the things that we hear when we travel outside, the continent again, people think that, we live with animals. They have the perceptions that, when you just come out of your house and then you find a giraffe, looking at you and things like that. And this is very interesting because, that is the narrative that we see, being portrayed out there. But, and unfortunately, sometimes even the schools that our children go to, we don't learn the African history. We learn bits and pieces here and there. And I think today in the show, it's about us embracing Africa and really engaging our listeners to say, how well do we know our continent? And I'm looking forward, to really, really, really engaging with you today. And we want you to join and we want you to be so engaging and use that social media platform to engage with us as we go together to embrace Africa.
Wow, that's so beautiful, Doc. And remember, this is the show about embracing Africa with two people who are hosting, and we call ourselves the pair with a story. So stay
Of
tuned.
course.
Africa's rich history and culture is so diverse, and it's also very different at the same time. So what we need to do from one country to the other, the stuff that is similar and the stuff that is different. So the culture of each ethnic group is very crucial. So that's what we'll also be learning in this show. Culture holds together the social fabric of traditional practices. So upon which a people are based on. So for example, I can be a South African, right? I am actually a mix of a Mozambican and a South African. However, the fact that I am Mutsonga, this already sets me apart from another ethnic group in terms of language, in terms of literature, in terms of color. You know how we Batsongas are known for popping of color blocking is our thing. So even the music
Yeah,
that
that
we
is why I
listen
have that. Yes, you can see already I'm color blocking with my dress.
to, exactly.
This represents, us, the Tsongas.
Yeah, yeah. So, as we go, as we explore this show, as we look into the arts, as we look into the food space, we want to explore what makes us so similar and yet makes us so different. But at the end of the day, we are one. So, The culture will include sculptures, we'll visit museums for some times, paintings, pottery, and many more of these things. We are a diverse continent. And what we are trying to do here is for us to embrace Africa for ourselves. It's time we tell our own story. So today's show, really, it's really about knowing your continent as an African.
Yes, and I like what you're saying, Aventina, that it's about, diversity. And I think what we are focusing more on the show is that diversity should not be seen in a negative sense. Diversity should not be something actually frowned upon. We have to embrace it and really engage and know our continent to say, okay, fine, who is actually doing what in the African, continent. Maybe as we start engaging and really getting to know our continent, the starting point will be to ask our listeners about if they know how many countries are there on the African continent. We just want to know if you are joining us from Facebook, and so just type that number of countries we have on the African continent. I think they say charity begins at home. That is where we actually need to start.
That will be so great.
Let's see
it
if
will be
our listeners know.
Interact with our people and he will tell us, for example, how many are we as a continent in the world?
We actually have on the African continent. It's a very simple question, but around,
I see an answer here from someone saying we have 54 countries. We have 54 countries as a continent in Africa.
Yes, before we come to the population, it's many countries. Okay, and some people are saying 50, 52. And the general knowledge that we want our listeners to find out. There are two numbers that you always find when countries we have. The number is always
It seems to me we have a challenge with our sound. We are working on it. So if you can be a bit patient with us, we are working on it.
that 55 no, we are fine, Argentina. From the always talk about 5 member states. Here is it 54? If you bring a little bit of the United Nations countries, but which is not a territory, and that's the Western Sahara. And I don't think during the show we're gonna go into details around that, but I think that could be a show on its own where we understand, when we begin to understand how countries are actually, as countries, either from the African Union or Europe, or the United Nations. But for now, look at that. I can see Numalo is saying good evening there. Yes, we can see. Thank you so much. Good evening. And yes, 54 countries, I think let us use that as our point of departure. But also, when you look at the African continent, there are also the overseas territories territories. Sometimes you might find, especially around the islands, you find some of the islands that are kind of, on the African shores, but they are not referred to as Africa. And I think we'll give, some more examples when we go there. And for us, these are some of the gender knowledge that we need to know, know our continent. I can see, we can actually see that. So I would like, our listeners there, just go on the chat and just type any country that you know about. I want to see if we can be able to cover, the 54 countries there. Any country that you know about. We said we have 54 countries from A to Z. Any country that you know about.
I'll be the first to
Yes,
go, Doc, because
we
I'm from
can see.
Mozambique.
Oh, you're from Mozambique. We see that. Let us see. Okay. Country we get, any country that you know about, go through. As I go through these countries, I would like our listeners to actually tick, the ones that be honest with yourself. Angola, Benin, Burkina Faso, Burundi, Cameroon, the Central African Republic, because the abbreviation is CAR. So I cannot forget. We have Chad, we have Comoros, Cote d'Ivoire. People will know it as Ivory Coast. Republic of Congo, that we also have Djibouti. Asking people, it's like, we never heard that. We have Equatorial Guinea, we have in Ghana, we have Guinea, we have, the list, is endless. But we also have, some islands that are on our African continent.
Wow, that is so brilliant. And on that note, while we allow people to...
When you look at, A to Z, if I start, from Z, then you have your country, Zambia, you have Uganda, that.
That is so brilliant. And on that note, while we allow people to... We can go on an ad break.
Yes, Argentina, I can see Mozambique. Nigeria is actually Rulani Balo. Yes, Nigeria, we see that. We very much, the new soccer on all. We all take a break, and when we click on a just go on the difficulties.
Thank you, everyone. After doing that little exercise of knowing the countries and you mentioning where you're coming from, now we need to know. And before I carry on, I know that we are experiencing technical issues. These are teething issues. Please be patient with us. We are trying to work around with the technical team to try and resolve the issues. Promise you next week, same time, same place, we'll be saying a different story. Everything will be sorted. So on that note, the next thing is a quiz night today. What we want to know is the population. Population.
Yes. Let me come in there. We want to know if our listeners know, the population that we have in Africa. What is the population of the African, on the African continent? Give us an indication if you know. You just give us an estimation. Okay, we know that Africa is actually part of, but what is the population that we have on the African continent? Okay, we know that, as of
So people can
2021,
send in, they can write to us and they can tell us what we think. While we wait for everyone to come in, when are you back? I think I can
okay,
come in and try it now.
so yes, come in. Okay, so I think we can actually give that answer. Population of population is 1.4 billion. That is the statistics that we are getting, as of 2021, and that population accounts for 18%. Well, so really, we population. But there's something that is very about the continent is that referred to as the young continent, and we are the youngest continent because we have a lot of young people on the continent. Hence, also one of the fastest, growing, continent in the world. Okay. So these are really interesting facts that we need to know as we begin to know our continent. Can you still hear me? Okay. We know on the African continent we have
That is very
people
interesting, Dr.
with
Ami. Can you hear me? I can hear you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
people different.
Okay. So another interesting fact.
I was losing you. I can hear you.
Okay. So another interesting fact.
Okay, listeners, I think we have a technical glitch here. I would like us to take a short, so we see how we feel, because we are losing each other. Can we take a short commercial break again? Then we will continue with our show. Let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll continue to talk about languages and many other facts the continent. Let's go for a short commercial break.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Streaming 24/7.
24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.
Bold Moves Radio.
Afrika nakupenda sana. Oh, Afrika nakupenda sana.
I think we are back on air now. Doc, I hope you can hear me now. It seems like there's a delayed echo that makes us go over each other's voices. So, can you, our beautiful audiences and listeners, indicate to us if you can hear me? And if you can, then we carry on with the show. And we will take over from where our Dr. HLAMI had left off. And that's where we were talking about the population. The population of Africa is considered to be one of the fastest growing populations in the world. So that is beautiful. Did you know that we have more than 2,000 recognized spoken languages in Africa alone? So isn't that beautiful? The most widely spoken, I'm sure a lot of us, like I did before I did this research, Arabic is the most spoken, widely spoken language in Africa. So Kiswahili is the second one, English third, French, and then Hausa and Yoruba, that is the top top 6 languages that are widely spoken throughout Africa. So that is some key interesting information. That is some fun fact that is lovely to know about your continent in our quest to embrace Africa and in our quest to enjoy Africa for ourselves, telling our own stories our own way. We are also told, funny enough, that you know what? The Republic of South Sudan became the world's newest nation and Africa's 54th country on the 9th of July 2011. So remember, there was a question earlier that was asking about the number of countries, and there was a debate between 54 and 55. So here is a fact that South Sudan has been considered or added on the list of all these African countries to be the 54th African country as of the 9th of July 2011. Who can tell us? And I saw some people mentioning the names, that's with an S if I can help. Who can tell us what is the smallest country in Africa? Anyone who can tell us what is the smallest country in Africa? It starts with an S. You never know. You can stand a chance of getting some amazing prizes that we could be giving away on the show. So anyone who can tell us that, I see Mrs. Sakani Mabasa is saying Seychelles, and that is the correct answer. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know that Seychelles is the smallest country in Africa? That is very nice to know. So there are also islands that are on overseas territories that actually belong to other countries as well. Territories of France, your reunions, and Spain, and Portugal, and Italy. So there are islands in Africa that actually border on the overseas territories. So this is beautiful information to know. And you will realize, ladies and gentlemen, today's show is really about us sensitizing each other to Africa, starting with the geography, mentioning all the countries that come to mind. If you have an interesting fact that you can share with all of us about Africa, come, we are sharing our stories the way we know how. We are sharing our African stories our way. So let it not be me talking to you, telling you the research that I've done with my doctor here. Please, this is our show. Come on board, share some interesting facts about your country as well, where you are from. I know there are people from all over Africa who have tuned in. And on that note, we are going to go for an ad break. We need to pay some bills. And when we come back, we'll continue about our beautiful continent of Africa. Let's go to an ad break. Back. We are back. We are back. Although we're having technical glitches, we promise you, come next week, it will be a different story. We'll sort out our things, our teething issues will be gone, and we'll be right on our path of exploring and embracing Africa the way we want to, the way we want to tell our stories. And like we had said during our launch show last week, feel free to contribute to the content of the show. Feel free to come on board. I specifically mentioned the issue of contract rent. And last week we had people who called after the show saying, you know, we've got travel agencies. How can
To our viewers and listeners out there, we continue to learn about, our African the languages. In South Africa, we always say we have about, 11 official languages and all that. But just as compared to all the languages that we have or that are recognized on the African continent, we have over 2,000 languages on the African continent. But what is interesting is that the top 5 can, or maybe which is Africa. I was asking, depending on where you come from, I will say Tsonga, which is my language, but it's actually, Arabic and Kiswahili. They're actually on the top, list of languages on the African continent, followed with, English, French, but all that are spoken in Nigeria, Hausa and Yoruba. They are also actually linked, or maybe a top on the list of the languages that are continent. That is very, very interesting, to see, these continue to love who we are, and we continue to embrace continent. Aventina, what other fact that we can share with our listeners? Aventina, any other stuff you have on your side? Okay, it's actually very interesting because as we were prepared with a lot of research, we got a lot of surprises with new things. And I think for me, something that also stood out, the oldest university found on the African continent. I would not that university was actually built back then. It's actually known university, and I was asking people, and that university is found in listeners. Next time you explore the African continent, go to those countries that are not things. About the without about the region, you know. And of course, it's the nations, because countries are actually on the United. Jules region is the North Africa, Egypt, and so have what Saharan as might have had.
Doc, I think we're having an issue again, and we'll just carry on from here. Again, please indicate to us, our beautiful listeners, what sort of challenges, so that next time we make sure we are dealing with the gremlins accordingly. So now we wanted to talk to you about UNESCO. I know a lot of teachers, like some organizations, NGOs that I've worked with who do a lot of training, they talk about UNESCO and they give out information, scientific and cultural information, and usually they teach about the African continent. UNESCO stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. This is one of the UN, United Nations agency. So what does it do and how does it help us as Africans? This is actually an agency that seeks to encourage the identification, number one, the protection, number two, and preservation of cultural and natural heritage around the world that is considered to be outstanding value to humanity. So I like how we define heritage. And remember, here is all about defining, it's all about embracing, it's all about telling our own stories the own way. But here they say, heritage is our legacy from the past, what we live with today and what we pass on to the future generations. So, our cultural and natural heritage are both irreplaceable sources of life and inspiration. So, as you can see from this definition, as Africa, we have a lot of heritage. Some of it might not be as beautiful as we would like it to be, but guess what? It is what we have. So, what we are going to do now, we are going to talk about our heritage. In South Africa, for example, we have beautiful landmarks or some of the areas with legal protection by an international convention administered by this UNESCO agency that we are talking about. World Heritage Sites. So, again, I know we are having challenges with our network, but if you can, please give us your positive energy by contributing and bearing with us and then sharing with us any of the landmarks, any of the world um, heritage landmarks that you know of in your country. So let's talk about that. We have a lot of them. Starting from South Africa, we have a few of them. So please tell us, what World Heritage sites do you know? I will start to kickstart the whole conversation. You know our famous Robben Island in Cape Town. So if you are a South African, when I say Robben Island, I'm sure the first name that comes to mind is Mandela. So I want people to give us other heritage sites that we have. I know we are suffering right now because of the network challenges that we are currently experiencing, but please let's carry on. Someone has mentioned a beautiful one, Mapungubwe. We know Mapungubwe.
Yes.
People from Limpopo know that very well. We have a festival every year that is organized by our Department of Arts and Culture in Limpopo, and we celebrate our heritage. We celebrate our culture. And another one, Rulani, my beautiful sister, mentions Table Mountain. We all know about Table Mountain. We all know those beautiful sites. So please keep them coming, keep them coming. Let's talk about that. Let's explore another one. Remember where we found Homo naledi recently when people were making all sorts of jokes around that? The cradle of humankind. The cradle of humankind is is a South African heritage site that is based where in Gauteng. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Where I am currently, I'm in Kimberley. We've got the Diamond Hole. The Diamond Hole, which is in Kimberley, we know it as what? One of the heritage sites of South Africa, and it's one of the largest diamond holes, man-made holes in Africa. So please bring them on, bring them on, bring them on. Yes, the big hole in Kimberley. Someone is saying, Mr. One can see that people that are in the
Yes.
tourist sector, they'll tend to know more about this sites because that is their job to actually highlight so they can take us through all these beautiful sites when we use their services. We have someone mentioning Fredefort. Fredefort Dome in the Free State.
Yes.
So that is another one. So that is another beautiful thing. You know, this information might sound like useless information, but this is what we call heritage, good people. This is what we call heritage. And Ismangaliso wetland, that is also beautiful. So it is so nice to know about
Yes.
our heritage. Our heritage reminds us who we are. Our heritage reminds us of the past. Our heritage reminds us of the future. What are you going to tell your children about your heritage? You know, so when we know about this information, I mean, this show is recorded and I would like to watch it again so that we know what not to do in the future. So trust me, we're going back and replaying so that we can correct some of the shortcomings. But for over and above that, I would want to play and look at these heritage sites that are coming through. I mean, Robben Island, someone is also mentioning again. So, Doc, if you're back on, you can come in. If you're back on, come in. Let's continue the conversation. And there is Komani Cultural Landscape. You won't believe some of these heritage sites. I'm only learning about them now that we have started engaging in this show. So, good people, this show is your show. Remember, we are telling Africa in our own voice. We are telling our African stories in our own ways. We are changing the African narrative of always
Yes, can you hear
seeing
me?
those children that are always malnourished with kwashiorkor and marasmus. We are changing the narrative of Africa, and only we can tell our story better. So please engage with us. Let us talk about this. There is another heritage site that just came through.
Yes.
It's called the Barberton Makonjwa Mountain Land. It's in the beautiful province of
Yes.
Mpumalanga. So, keep them coming. They are adding on our history. They are adding on our information and on our heritage. So,
Okay, can you hear me,
we
Mabuza?
appreciate it. And I see my leadership, Joylene Mangani, coming to say, you know what? It's not useless information. It's awakening us. It let us know how to learn about our country. This is a serious challenge. So, good people, when we are talking short left, let's try short left indeed. Let's go to these African sites that we have learned about. Let's go and explore the heritage that we are learning about. There are so many good people. There are so many other exciting things that we can learn about Africa. For example, some of the African countries, they get a very bad rap and from their fellow brothers and sisters, and maybe to a certain extent without any merit to it. Maybe there's some good things that they have and some other not so good things that they do. Who am I talking about? It doesn't take a penny to guess that I'm referring to our Nigerian brothers and
Yes.
sisters. Did you know that Nigeria is known to have the highest number of
Yeah.
twins born in the world? How is that for a fun fact? So in Nigeria is known
Yeah.
to have the highest number of twins born in the whole world. So if you're looking to have twins in the family, you know which
Yes.
country to to go to. So I don't know how true and
Yeah.
how not true this is, but these are some of the fun facts, good people, that as we go with the show, we can explore, we can look, we can debate, and then we can know more and we can learn more about our continent.
About.
Maybe on the next show, maybe on future shows, we'll get our Nigerian fans to come and actually confirm if this thing is a fun fact or not. That will be excellent
Okay.
for them to come on the show. So, our Nigerian people,
Yeah,
please
Aventina.
get in touch with us. Let's talk. Another fun element, good people, is that African elephants, wow, these are the largest living mammals in the world. So, did
Yeah,
you hear that? African
that is
elephants are the
interesting.
largest living mammals in the whole world. I'm not talking about a country or what, in the whole world. This could weigh up to 6 tons and 7 meters long. Wow, that's really the
Yo,
size of, with
that
us who are
is
making
big.
products, it's
That is so
actually
big.
6,000 little bags of our NutriBoost right there in one elephant. So that is
That is
actually
so
amazing.
big.
It's actually an amazing fact to learn. And guess what?
Yeah,
The
that is
oldest
so big.
university
Hmm.
oldest university in the world is found where? In Africa. So, Africa, you are not small.
Yeah.
Africa, embrace yourself. It's called the University of Timbuktu in Mali. This university was built in the 12th century. So there's a lot that
Wow.
we can
Wow.
offer the world. And we are telling you these facts as a first show or the second show so that we can entice your interest in the continent of Africa. If you feel you're a
Africa.
subject
Yes.
matter expert on food, for example, come on board. We want you to talk to us about African
Yes.
food. If you are a subject matter expert as a designer of African clothes, you know how we have the different African fabrics. Come on the show. Let's talk about that. You have heard on the previous show, Dr. HLAMI mentioned the issue that we are going to have a skill day where we bring people on board who who are going to talk to us about a particular skill. So this This, good people, is our show. Come on board. Let's learn together. Let's laugh together. Let's learn about our similarities. We will actually find that we are more similar than we are different as a nation, as a continent, and as a people. So, good people, as we are rounding off,
Yes.
towards the end of the show, I need you to explore with me. I need you to send me your comments. How can we best improve the show? What more do you want to see? What should we engage with you on? Do you want to be given an opportunity to call in? Do you want to be featured? And also, what is it that you do? What solutions are you bringing to the African market? So let's talk. Like I said, this is actually our show. And another fun fact
Yes.
before I go. Did you know, did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that the world's largest frog is found in Africa? It's called the Goliath frog. And
Yeah.
apparently, it can be.
Yeah, that is very, very funny. I also learned that, that frog can be as big as a baby at birth, when you give, birth and average. That's how big, the frog is. And it's actually found in those countries. And as we wrap up, I just want back a little bit, to that topic around the heritage. Because Aventina shared, and some of listeners shared, some of the World Heritage sites in Africa. But on the continent, we have about 98 World Heritage sites in 47 countries. So we would like to encourage you, as you visit, different African, continents, look for those, World Heritage sites. In the world, those sites are about, maybe around 1,157. So yes, the continent has, a big share of that, which is 89, which is actually very good. Africa is taking the lead, but also we have, countries like Egypt, we have, countries like, Tunisia and Ethiopia, well, Morocco, they also have, the biggest number of, compared to other African countries. But really, about, 47 countries on the African continent have, those, World Heritage sites. How do we select that? We are not the ones who are selected, are actually endorsed by the United Nations, UNESCO, as Aventina has said, and certain criteria that are used, to determine that a site can actually be regarded as World Heritage. What is also very unique about that site is that once it's declared a World Heritage site, that territory can be accessed by everybody. Then it becomes more like a application, something, a landmark that can actually be accessed, by everybody. How those landmarks actually managed, it's not only controlled by the certain country, but also it has to adhere to the rules and regulations of the United Nations that keep, that standard as a World Heritage, a site. Yeah, so there are a lot of, things that we are actually about the African continent. It's just that, time is not sufficient for us to actually share everything, that we have researched about. But we would like to encourage, you to actually share with us, the facts, that especially, those positive, sides. Today, it was just for us to actually, set the scene, and we would like to apologize of the technical glitches. We hope, to improve as we go further. And as we continue with, the show, throughout, the year, we're gonna invite people from those different different countries. I think it will not be right for me to talk about we have people that live in Kenya. It will not be sufficient for me to talk about Tunisia example, when we could actually invite people from Tunisia. That's a bit more about the country. So we'll make an effort with the team to really find people in the different countries, so that when we start, talking, they actually from their own experiences. But we also try to make an effort to get, people who are well traveled, the people who have actually traveled, the continent, so that they can actually witness kind of, experiences, so that we learn together. There are a lot of things that we are so diverse, but there are a lot of things that are common between, our African, countries, which would like to showcase, we learn about. Maybe just to remind you, as we actually wrap up, next week, Giants Day, we are looking forward, to really talking anything and everything around, loving the African way. We are looking to invite, some guests who will tell us a little bit about, the different cultures, maybe from the different countries, and how do we celebrate Valentine? How do we celebrate, a love, the African way? We know we have different cultures. In South Africa, we have Lobola, and other continent, or maybe other African countries might be doing it, in a different way. We would like, really to work together and really get, first-hand, experiences on how we celebrate love, the African. We are wrapping up. There are so many things also that we could share. For example, and for me, that is a biggest lesson that I have learned, that, we can never generalize. I'm sitting here in South Africa. At the moment, I'm in Cape Town. You can believe that, in Cape Town, as I'm sitting here, but somebody who's sitting in Guyana, is already, getting dark. So we cannot generalize, but we need to make an effort to know our continent. We know our differences. We know the diversities, so that we cannot generalize, but, really appreciate, this. The very same thing happens to climate. Talking a little bit about South Africa, in months, or maybe even beginning December and all that, we're hearing a lot of rain, some floods, and in Gauteng, in Limpopo, in KwaZulu Natal. But here in the Western Cape, we don't have, those floods. We don't have, the climate is slightly different. So it's very important for us continue to learn about our continent. We should not generalize about certain things. Let us actually have our facts right, so that we we know about our continent together. Our listeners, we wish we could have, all about, learning or knowing our continent, but our time is not on our side. As we wrap up, we would like to thank, our technical producer, Dr. DJ Messi there. We want to thank our producer, Dr. Mabila there, but also the team and our listeners who are already joining and going with us on this journey. And we'd like to apologize again for the technical glitches, but we know that we'll go further. And on that note, we are saying, let us actually meet again, same time, same place, next week Tuesday, as we celebrate Valentine together. And on that note, we are saying to you, let Africa embrace herself. Let us, spend time to know our continent. As a teacher myself, I always tell my students that, make Dr. Google your friend. Google a little bit and know some, of the facts that, under normal circumstances, you will not actually know. On that note, we would like to say thank you. Thank you to our viewers there. We can say we can see Miela Nishuma. Thank you so much. Virginia Mansibongile Mugeri, we can see you. Yes, Jolene, we can see you. Rulani, Tsakani. Oh, thank you so much for joining in, and we really, really appreciate, your contribution. Over to you, Mandla, if you have, a few words that you want to say to our listeners before we log off. Okay, so we will see you next week, and we'll be talking, loving the African way, and we'll definitely try to actually fix, our technical, issues, so that we don't disturb, the flow of the show and your contribution as we go together on this journey of actually embracing our African continent. Thank you, and God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is.
Streaming 24/7.
24/7.
Bold Moves Radio.